brown has all dried, and now we can start to add in some landscape, which is really going to make this stand out. So I'm going to start over here with the smallest section here, and the green that I'm using is called Green Appetite. It's from Daniel Smith, and it's a bit of an obscure color, so if you don't have it, don't worry about it. Sap green will work really well. Or any kind of warm toned green, and you can always mix your greens too, so try mixing greens with some blues, or mixing your green with a little bit of brown too can give it some kind of earthiness. So all I'm going to do is take a light watery mixture. Because this area is quite small, I'm not going to worry about wetting it first, so I'm just going in with my green and just going to paint this area in with my wet paint. So when you come to the area where you're hitting this bottom section here, you want to leave the edge kind of jagged because you're painting around grass that's going to be shooting up, so I like to leave my edge kind of jagged there. And then because this is far away, I'm actually going to come in with some of my phthalo blue and add this right on top of that green in a few areas to kind of give it a turquoisey look, and it'll kind of push it back farther away. And I'm going to make this area a little slightly darker than this one will be too. So while that's still wet, we can actually go ahead, and I'm using the same green, and I'm going to be putting in some distant trees here. So no need to do a lot of detail, just making the indication of some trees that live way off in the distance. And I'm going to put some phthalo in these as well. So there we go. That's all we need to do for that one. So now we can work on this side. So because this side is a little bigger, I'm going to go ahead and wet it first. Still got some blue on my brush there. And wetting this will also help with making it just a tad bit lighter than this side. So remember, we went in with straight paint on that side, it'll be a little more intense. Okay, so I've got the area wet. I'm going to go right in with my green, and I'm going to work from the bottom up. So remember to leave some jagged edges here. Paint around some little grassy formations that are going to live right here. And you can see how I'm plopping this color in, and I'm leaving some space. There's some white spaces in between my greens here. And I'll show you something else you can try. This is a mountain formation, so there's going to be areas where you've got some mountains showing through. So I'm going to grab a little blue. I'm going to plop that down in a few areas, not too intense. And once I get the blue in, I'm going to rinse off, and now I'm going into my brown, which I'm using burnt umber. It's the same color I'll use for the bear. So grabbing a bit of that watery brown, and I'm going to put that right on top of where I dropped in these blues. And those two colors together kind of give you a grayish green tone. Very earthy, very mountainy, just for some different little things happening on your mountain there. And you can also see that I'm not really trying to add detail. The way that the paint lands and how it's going to dry is really going to determine the detail in this, and it will end up looking like green grasses and rocks and all sorts of things growing in there. I'm going to add a little more blue on top of that brown. There we go. So once I have that in, then I can start to add the trees again. So I've got two trees that live right here, starting in with my green color. And I'm adding a bit of turquoise as I go, just for some variation. And I'm not really adding that much detail, a little bit more detail than I did on the more distant trees, but still not trying to make everything too perfect. And once you meet the bottom here, you just kind of blend the two together, just let them mix and mingle when the two wet areas meet. So now I'll put in my second tree. And voila, we have a really cool looking scene. And you can see this is already starting to dry, and where the blue and the brown were dropped in, it really does give it kind of a mountainy, earthy look. So I'm going to let everything dry, and then we can start on our bear.